Dale Dougherty. I am with O'Reilly Media, and I run the Maker Media group in there that produces Make Magazine and Maker Fair. O'Reilly as a company has produced manuals and for technology people, and how do you learn about a new technology? And a lot of times we pick up a book to do that. And I began seeing that people were this generation of kind of software hackers, I call them in a positive sense, was beginning to look at the physical world as a place to do things. And just had a hunch that this was kind of a new area, that sometimes working with electronics or robotics was sort of new and interesting, not just like designing applications for a computer screen, but actually having them move around the world, right? And we can even think of things like cars as a kind of robotics platform. So I came up with the idea for Make, and connected to that was really this notion of DIY, or do it yourself. And in the magazine world, anyway, this at least is one way of looking at it. We have magazines about woodworking, cooking, gardening, and you read those magazines because you do that activity. It's a hobby, right? And I thought we really didn't have that kind of magazine for technology enthusiasts. We didn't have projects to do. We had magazines that tell you how to buy technology, sometimes how to just use it. But I had a sense that projects were a good way to organize technology, and increasingly the generation that grew up with technology wanted to play with it. Both to learn what it's good at, and also to share it with other people. So that was the impetus of Make, this DIY technology projects magazine. I mean, hands-on is this really important idea that's coupled with, I think, DIY, of just you learn by doing. You learn by taking something apart. You have questions that you explore by looking at something, getting your hands on it. And even back to the early computer days, there was this idea of hands-on as not just sort of using your hands, but getting access and being able to gain control of a technology. And that's the big thing. It's like the kid taking apart the TV is searching really not just to use his hands, but to figure out how it works. And, could I make one of these? Embedded in this is just a curiosity of what's the world around us? How does it work? What is it made up of? And how do I influence it? How do I change it? And I would say there's also a new wave of tools like 3D printers, laser cutters, that are changing the way we think about even manufacturing. So small-scale manufacturing is allowing us to do prototypes, do one-of-a-kind manufacturing that is very different than what we've had in the past. The framing idea of DIY and Make is really you can learn to do anything. What comes from it positively is really the inner motivation to do this, an intrinsic motivation to do this, to explore, to have your own questions being formed. This is the power here. Is if you think of, in contrast to school, where someone is loading you up with information that most of the time has no context and doesn't resonate with you. Think about the passion and enthusiasm that you have that makes you say, how does this work, or how do I build something? Or a kid has an idea for something in their head, and be able to take that idea and transform it into something real that they could show other people. That's a very powerful thing. And that, again, it's not that different if you're an artist or a musician or an inventor. I mean, they're all kind of, I got something that I'm thinking about, and I put it into some form and shape that other people can react to and give me feedback to, and say, that's cool, or it really isn't so good. Keep working, I think we're really trying to move from the student as a consumer of a standardized education curriculum to a student who's a creator of their education, that's producing and creating that education. Because this is really what it's about, is moving from being directed to do something to being self-directed. And the world changes completely when you figure out that you can drive the bus, right? When you get to do things. And that's, even literally, that's why for kids, like getting a driver's license is so important, because they finally get control of something that's really important to them. And this is the beauty of organizing something like Maker Faire. I think of it as a community-based learning event. I'm bringing together all these smart people that do stuff all the time. You could learn from all of them. They're not necessarily, but they could be in a school. They could be a hobbyist group. They could be a parent in a garage. but they all have something that they're doing, and I think kids can gravitate to that. The biggest thing that's missing in school today, the kids aren't inspired, and when you're not inspired, you're not engaged, and when you're not engaged, you're not learning, you're not really paying attention, right? You're not focused. But it's very different to be exploring and testing out things, and that's the real beauty of science and technology, is you get the feedback. When you're doing something and it doesn't work, it's telling you, I'm not working, right? Fix me, find another way, and you go back there and do that. When you're reading something and your mind's drifting and you're not getting it, you don't get that feedback. All you know is it's not sort of connecting. So I think there's a real opportunity, particularly with kids that don't learn in the standard settings, learn from textbooks, learn from classroom settings. How could we give them alternatives, like open labs, where for 3 or 4 hours a day, they're really doing stuff. They're learning about tools, they're tackling projects, they're learning about materials, they're learning about, working with each other. And I think that the other side that education can learn so much from is just the power of the peer groups to teach each other. I mean, when you learned something ahead of me, you could turn around and teach me right then and be my peer mentor. Maker Faire brings that whole rich community together. How do schools tap into that? Or how do students, more importantly, tap into that on an ongoing basis? Because schools sometimes seem to be resistant to connecting to the community that way. When I look at education, the important thing, I think, is that we don't exclusively focus on schools, that we realize that community education happens in our community. It happens everywhere. It happens every day. We talk about being in your genes. You wake up wanting to learn things. We don't often reinforce that, right? But kids are curious, they're creative, from the get-go, and we do sort of, close that off for them. We get parents coming to Maker Faire, and I think they see things in their kids in that context that they've never understood before. Their kid who takes something apart, they're telling them not to, right? This is like, that's destructive. Don't do that, Johnny, right? But they come to Maker Faire and see people celebrating doing that, and they're talking, oh, there's so much fun, and this is how I learn, and this is how it got me to doing robotics, or got me doing what I'm doing today, and they suddenly understand that. We've kind of, that archetype, if you will, of the tinkerer has been lost in our culture, so that it's seen kind of as an unusual thing. And again, you go back 50 years, it might have been recognized. Oh, kid, you're good at this. I know how to help you. I know how to support you. Today, I think we have to even educate parents a bit. Here's how to feed that hunger. Here's how to help them satisfy their own curiosity and challenge them to develop it and move on. We often think of innovation coming from R&D labs, but it really comes from the way we use things, the way people see. And again, it's like, think about, like, if you were not using technology day to day, to come up with an idea for like a new technology or a new way to use technology would be, it'd be ridiculously hard. But if you're using it every day, you begin to see, oh, nobody's doing that, or that problem is a real sticky one. I'm going to go in there and solve it. So I think the opportunities are there. And to some degree, creating a business is realizing that you're moving from satisfying yourself to satisfying the needs of other people. And I see this sometimes, in auto industries, they tend to hire people from the same places, the same background. They put them in the same room, and they say, we're doing the same thing year after year. And what about all of these kind of free radicals that are out there in the open innovation space? Why not connect to some of them? See what, they have really unconventional ideas. There may be a good ability to mix that together.